Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Managing Your Wellbeing Mental Health and Wellness workshop facilitated by Inge Ackerman, an intern counseling psychologist at Rhodes University's Counseling Center. This workshop supports postgraduate students in understanding and managing stress and burnout. It explores how these challenges show up in academic settings and how to recognize early signs. Participants will learn practical strategies for setting boundaries, managing time, and addressing academic guilt and perfectionism. The session also highlights the importance of destigmatization in mental health, normalizing rest and therapy, and seeking help when needed. Students will explore ways to build supportive networks, connect with mentors, and incorporate simple, effective self-care in daily life. The workshop will conclude with a guide to available campus mental health resources designed to be both informative and empowering. This session equips postgraduates with tools to protect their well-being and thrive in their academic journey. I will attach a poster with the evaluation link in the chat feature. Please fill it in after the workshop. Thank you very much. I will hand over to Inge.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today. You are more than welcome to keep your camera off. I will be sharing my screen. If there are any questions, I will stop and pause throughout, but if there are any questions, please just pop them in the chat, and yeah, feel free to engage this afternoon. I always feel that workshops are more helpful, and just we get a lot more out of them if we do kind of engage with each other and with the content. With that being said, I think, if everyone is happy, we can start. Please let me know if you guys are able to hear, and if at any time the sound is unclear, just let me know. So, as Isitu mentioned, it will be a postgraduate workshop kind of looking at how to thrive in a situation where stress and burnout is quite prevalent. So I thought just going into what we will cover today. So we'll look at understanding stress and burnout, looking at some tools for work-life balance, navigating guilt and perfectionism, actually looking at how mental health shows up in academia, how to build lasting support networks, and then just touch on some self-care strategies and resources. So before we start, if you had to kind of describe your academic week as a weather forecast, what would it look like for most of us? Would it be kind of sunny and clear, so things are good, cloudy with deadlines, we're really feeling swamped right now, tornado warning, there is a lot of stress and burnout incoming? Or is there a break in the storm? Are we experiencing some hopeful moments this week? Cloudy but warm, that's good. Okay. I can imagine at this point in the term, the tornado warnings are quite prevalent. Oh, the sun has come out. I'm glad to see that. Okay. So if we look at actually defining stress, so I'm going to be sharing like some academic references, and it'll all be shared at the end, but actually looking at stress as when individuals perceive that they cannot adequately cope with the demands being made on them, or when we perceive threats to our well-being. But if we look at academic stress specifically, This refers to psychological distress associated with academic-related demands and pressures, such as workloads, deadlines, evaluations, and future uncertainty, which can overwhelm us and overwhelm our perceived ability to cope. And I always find it useful to kind of look at stress and coping through the transactional model of stress and coping by Lazarus and Folkman. So they identify three key concepts of stress. So, firstly, appraisal, so evaluating a situation and its demands, and then coping, how we manage stress, and then the environment. So, what are the external factors that influence our stress? So, for the first one, appraisal, there are two stages. So, appraisal is how we interpret or evaluate a situation. So, this will obviously look different from person to person, but it happens in two stages. So, we go through the first stage, primary appraisal. So, we kind of sit with, is this situation a threat? Is it a challenge? Or is it an irrelevant situation? So, for example, you might have a thesis deadline, and this might be appraised as being threatening to your well-being. Then we move on to, okay, but do I have the resources to deal with this? And if we feel underprepared and undersupported, it is very likely that stress will increase. Okay, are there any questions so far? Everyone's still fine. Okay, so if we look at the second key concept, coping, how we actually manage these stressful situations that we appraised in the previous step. So, in a postgraduate situation, coping will mostly involve problem focused and emotion focused coping. When we look at problem focused coping, we're trying to actually solve the issue. So, if we keep the example of having to submit a thesis, problem focused coping might look like creating a thesis timeline, whereas emotion focused coping will be managing the feelings. So, managing those stressful feelings, the emotions that are paired with high stress situations. So, this might look like talking to a friend or practicing mindfulness. Again, our coping strategies are different for all people. So my coping strategies might not look like yours. And then the environment, and any environment has such a big role to play in how we perceive ourselves and the stresses that we go through. So the environment in Lazarus and Folkman's model of stress and coping includes external factors such as the institutional culture, the relationship you might have with your supervisor, financial stress, and workload expectations. And these can either buffer against stress or they can greatly contribute to stress, especially in like work environments like postgraduate work life, where the environment is high pressure, it is competitive, and many times under resourced, which really can make our stress levels much worse. So, moving away from what we define stress as, what is kind of the understanding around burnout? What does burnout look like for you? In most cases, and I'm thinking of more like an academic sense here, burnout is kind of made up of three dimensions. So we will be looking at emotional exhaustion, we will be looking at depersonalization and reduced personal accomplishment. So burnout is a psychological syndrome emerging as a prolonged, and I think that's where the importance is. So prolonged response to chronic stress. And as I said, characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sense of reduced personal accomplishment. So, if we look at the first dimension, emotional exhaustion. So you're feeling emotionally drained, you're feeling overwhelmed, overextended. So this might show up in a postgraduate student's life as someone who constantly feels like too tired to write. You can't get yourself to write. You're too tired to work, even after you spent an entire weekend resting. So there's really just nothing that you have in you anymore to actually do the work. Similarly, the dimension of depersonalization, which is also like a cynical outlook. So you feel disconnected, you're negative, you're cynical about not just your work, but even academic relationships. So an example could be like losing motivation for research or becoming resentful towards your supervisor or your peers. And then the last facet of burnout, reduced personal accomplishment. So having that sense that I'm ineffective and I have achieved nothing, despite the fact that there is effort and evidence of progress. So, using an example again, um, a master's student is doubting their ability, they're burnt out, thoughts of I'm not good enough, I can't finish this research is it's continuously popping up because of the burnout and despite the evidence of there being progress. So I think this visual representation makes it kind of for anyone that has experienced burnout, these are kind of the things that do come up and they do overlap. And it's a place where we do not wish to find ourselves. And I think that's why workshops like these and workshops promoted by Rhodes are so amazing, because we really try to kind of stop these things before they show up. With that being said, how does stress and burnout kind of show up for everyone in their academic settings or work related settings? What is kind of the things that we are working with here? And you're welcome to put on your audio if you want to like join the chat, or just put it down in the chat box. Okay, let's go on to some of the typical signs of burnout. So I find it useful to kind of look at them in three categories. So mental and emotional signs, so constant worry about performance, feeling like you're not doing enough, even when you are actually overworking yourself, and a lack of motivation despite putting in that effort. Then we see it in our behavioral patterns. So you're overcommitting to deadlines and responsibilities and not really having that ability to say no or to set healthy and realistic boundaries. And most often, we are also socially impacted. You isolate, you withdraw from peers, supervisors, and support systems. And it's important to notice that these signs build gradually. It's usually not happening all at once. They build gradually. So recognizing them is like a key to prevent burnout and to get that early support that you may need. So some of the early signs that could be showing up: changes in sleep or appetite, irritability or frequent tears, so a bit of emotional regulation difficulties, losing interest in academic work, feeling stuck or hopeless, and then reduced creativity and focus. And I find it so interesting that, you know, if we look at it from like a mental health practitioner viewpoint, these signs kind of really mimic what we would see in someone who is depressed. So changes in sleep and appetite, irritability, frequent tears, losing interest in academic work, which could mirror anhedonia, so not feeling pleasure in the things that you used to, and then feeling stuck or hopeless with a reduced focus and creativity. These closely could mimic what signs of depression are. So, because of these overlaps, burnout really is something to look out for, and it can sometimes lead to or even mask depression, making it very important to monitor how persistent and severe the symptoms are and become. Okay. Okay, I see some responses here. So, snapping on or responding emotionally towards peers, non communication and non engagement with supervisors, headaches and fatigue, feeling hopeless. That is absolutely right on with these early signs. And I think they also nicely identify like these different categories of how burnout shows up in our work academic settings. Thank you guys so much for sharing. So what do we actually do then? How do we keep that work life balance? Because there will always be the work will be there. It's up to us to create that balance for ourselves. Um, so I'll be kind of going through some practical tips and tips that have worked for me, and that research kind of shows these are helpful in specifically a postgraduate setting. And I also do have kind of a postgraduate workbook available that if you guys are interested in it, please leave your email addresses, or I'll leave mine and you're welcome to send me an email and I can just forward it to you. And I put it in a table format so that it's kind of easy for us to go through. And yeah, I didn't put in too much information as I thought we could kind of talk to the content and engage with the content. So setting realistic goals and timeframes. I feel like that's always in any workshop presentation about academic life. And I think that is just because it really is the starting point for most of us to get into the groove of working. So, breaking large goals into small time bound tasks. And I feel like we have all heard of SMART goals at least a million times at this time in our careers. But do we actually ever apply them? Sorry. Do we actually ever apply them? So if we look at that, we are working in short focus bursts. So working for 20 to 25 minutes, taking a 5-minute break, doing something different in your break. And that's going to come in again when we talk about the time blocking techniques. But I always feel that when that burnout, stress, overwhelm comes into play, it's so difficult to kind of even get to the place of, okay, I'm going to work in small, realistic time frames. I'm going to do these things, but what should I start with? So kind of sitting down and prioritizing your workload with musts, should, and could. So your must tasks will be urgent. They need to be done now. Your should are important, but time frame is flexible. And then your could is nice to do. So kind of starting with that and then building upon with the rest of the techniques. So using things like time blocking techniques, so blocking fixed periods, having that 1 to 2 hours a day for focused work. So I'm going to work on my theoretical framework in my research thesis for 2 hours today. I'm going to break it down 20 to 25 minutes. I'm going to take a 5 minute break so that we avoid doing multitasking during our working blocks, because that's really where overwhelm just sets in. Having a million tabs open, being on Are You Connected, being on the library website, being on Google Scholar, being everywhere all at once, and trying to just multitask all the things that we have to do instead of sitting down, prioritizing, this is what I'm going to do. Um, and then to actually let ourselves take frequent breaks. So do those social media checkings, take a walk. It really does protect our focus and boosts our mood. But getting ourselves to work is usually the most difficult part in doing the actual work. So procrastination is something that I don't think we can get away from. So what I usually find works for me is to kind of use the 5 second rule. Count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and take action. Start working. Start small. It doesn't have to be something big, but starting really is often the hardest part. So even like opening that document, opening that book, or writing one sentence usually leads to more. And I think with that also being said, underestimating free writing. So when you don't know what to say or where to begin, free writing can really be a great way to unlock ideas, but also take some of the pressure off to just start writing. And usually we find that that free writing is so useful and applicable to our research, to our work. And then also keeping in mind protecting those non-academic hours. So having a cutoff time at 7 p.m. I'm stopping with my work. This is now where I will do the things that pour into me, that are helpful to my mental health. Okay. Is there anything anyone would like to share at this point? Any insights? Anything that you have found work for you that might be applicable to others? Please feel free to share at any time. Okay, and then I feel like this is something that we deal with a lot. It shows up in a lot of different ways for all of us. So I thought a good exercise could be to kind of do a cognitive behavioral exercise, if I can frame it like that, to kind of reframe those perfectionistic inner critic parts that we have. So turning to a partner, if you're watching the workshop with someone, or just taking a quiet moment for yourself and writing down a perfectionistic or inner critic thought, And then taking a moment to reframe it into a kind of more compassionate statement. So, an example might look like, if it's not the best, it's a failure. But reframing it into a kind of more compassionate statement might be, good enough is enough for today. You are welcome to just take a few moments to write that down. If you feel like you want to share, please do. Okay. I hope that was helpful for some of you, hopefully all of you. Um, yeah, this is just a helpful pausing point to kind of reflect. Workshops are often filled with a lot of content, and I find it useful to kind of take some moments to just reflect, check in with ourselves, see where our emotions are, where our stress levels are. And then, yeah, if anyone at any point has something to share, wants to share, please feel free to do so. And then we can go on to the next part, which will be kind of looking at that perfectionism and guilt. So often, high standards don't equal high performance, and perfectionism actually hinders our progress. It makes us less productive. And it's so important for us to kind of accept that at some point, done is better than perfect. So finishing a task is more effective than not finishing at all. Having the sense of, I need to do it perfectly, instead of just starting and actually getting so much work done. But and this is something I also struggle with, letting go of guilt when resting. You don't need to earn your rest. Rest is productive. And feeling guilty about taking rest periods, looking after yourself, can just reinforce those burnout cycles. And then reframing negative self talk. So, like the exercise we did in the previous slide. So, challenging those internal critical thoughts, those internal beliefs that we all have about ourselves and about our performance. So, trying to turn the I should have into the I am learning to. So, really being able to step into that reflective cycle and reframing some of those and challenging actually some of those negative self talks and negative thoughts. And then valuing process over performance. So, growth and learning matter more than flawless results. Progress counts, and it's often difficult in the moment to see the progress that is being made. But again, taking a step back and seeing, okay, 3 weeks ago I was here, look at all this progress I have made. And oftentimes I experience that when we are under pressure, especially in like academic or high stress settings, there's often the tendency to kind of compensate by trying to include everything you know or every possible detail. So what I think I'm trying to kind of get to is to be aware of the urge to include everything. So to focus more on quality over quantity. So prioritizing the depth of the work you do and choosing the most relevant points and to explore them. So to kind of ask yourself, okay, what is most important for the purpose of this task? What supports my argument clearly and effectively? So taking away from that, I need to include everything mindset helps to reduce burnout and perfectionism while also improving the quality, clarity, and actually just the impact that your work can have. Okay, see, there is a question. Is there a point when we are overusing kind reframing? Okay. Yeah, so definitely accountable. You need to keep yourself accountable. But I think that's where those strategies of keeping like a time frame, setting a realistic time frame. I you know what you need to do. You know that you need to achieve X amount of work by a certain period of time. Say, for instance, I know I need to send my supervisor a chapter by the end of the month. Then I know how much work is ahead of me. I know what I need to do. I know how much time I need to spend on it. So, kind of working on that structure, but also giving yourself time to rest. But I definitely, I definitely can relate to that. And I think when we are in those situations where we are overstressed and overworked, that one page is really all that we can do. But to be cognizant of the fact to not make it a habit. So, not to fall into the habitual, I want to say, the habitual notion of, okay, I did one page. It's more than enough. It's more than I should have or could have done. But to keep on pushing, but not pushing past what we are capable of at that moment. If if that makes if that makes any sense, please, yeah, please indicate if that is still unclear. But great question, and thank you for sharing. So moving kind of into mental health in an academic setting. I mean, all of you that are joining today have some interest in at least protecting your mental health, increasing your mental health levels. So, what are some of the things that we are doing to kind of keep our mental health in check for, you know, for moments when burnout and stress and life is just severely overwhelming?
Um, can I share?
Yes.
Okay, Simon from Namibia.
Hi.
I'm doing, I'm good. Uh, one of the things I have to drop out from my PhD from one of the university,
Mm,
and because my supervisors were speaking a language that I don't even understand, and our expectations were not aligned, and I feel like they were not compassionate enough. Every question I need, for example, I ask for funding, and you ask how much you must write, you don't really get a encouraging response. I
mm,
remember one supervisor even attack my main supervisor in comments. He said, this one is have not sat at this university for long, so it doesn't know how
Sure.
ethics things like that. So it get down on me, and now that I'm at Rhodes for my PhD, I'm coping. I said I'll not treat doing a PhD as a sprint. I'll take it as a marathon.
Sure. That's beautifully said, Simon. Thank you for sharing. Take it as a sprint, as a marathon, not a sprint. That's wonderful. And yes, like it's amazing that you were able to kind of put yourself and your mental health first, because that is what is supposed to come first. And if we look at kind of the points that I have highlighted here, so normalizing therapy, I feel like we have come a long way. We've come a long way to therapy being a more normalized form of healthcare, but there are still a lot of stigmatizing factors related to therapy. Um, so just as we wouldn't judge someone for visiting a doctor, we should stop stigmatizing therapy or taking time off for mental wellness. And I think Rhodes does an amazing job at promoting access to counseling services and encouraging their use. And I will also share at the end of our presentation, I'll share some resources. I see there is a comment. Yes, and that is 100% something that we do go through, not feeling like we don't have enough time. Like I have so much work. I can't take an hour off to go to therapy. And that is something I'm going to touch on now. I'm going to touch on that point now. But also thinking about the fact that rest is essential. It's not earned. Um, it's often seen as a reward for productivity, but rest is a basic human need. It's something you need to stay alive. And academic culture often glorifies burnout and overworking. And this is just, it needs to stop. It needs to shift. This mindset needs to shift. And rest actually supports creativity, focus, and long term well being. So I think touching on that point where, okay, we don't have time to go to therapy, we don't have time to look after ourselves. But when we are overwhelmed and burnout, it's easy to put these things, like the things we enjoy or the things that will take care of us, on hold. And this actually can make things so much harder. And enjoyment or fulfillment or something that takes care of you is not a distraction, it's fuel. So actually making time for the things that bring you joy can improve your energy, mental health, mental clarity, and your motivation. So, doing things that support you or things that you like or enjoy can also stimulate your creativity, actually making it easier and faster for you to complete your professional tasks. So, taking that hour, going to therapy, you might learn some skills, learn things about yourself, and you might actually find that work that would have taken you 3 hours is now taking you 2 hours or an hour and a half because you took that time away. You took that time for yourself. I kind of hope that answers that question or that comment. And then also talking to the fact that if you're failing, you're struggling, which is it's such a stigmatizing thing. And struggling with mental health does not mean you're weak or incapable. It means you're a human being. Humans fail, humans struggle. And in an academic setting, we must make room for vulnerability and provide support systems that affirm rather than shame students and staff who are having a hard time. And again, I feel like the environment at Rhodes is really conductive and conducive to that. So touching again on that and self-criticism, like we did in that reframing exercise earlier. So instead of being critical towards yourself, kind of asking, what do I need right now? Is it rest? Is it food? Do I need some support, or do I just need a break? And how can I actually work with my energy levels and not against them? So you might not be lazy, you're just tired. It's really easy to sometimes, I feel, label ourselves as lazy when we are not meeting the standards that we are used to or our usual standards. But this label really is often unfair and inaccurate. What you might be experiencing is not laziness. It could be exhaustion, burnout, or even mental overload. So when your brain and body are depleted, it's natural for us to feel unmotivated and to struggle to get things done. And this is a signal. This is your body signaling that it needs help, it needs rest. It's not a character flaw. So being like this critical, hard on yourself person only adds to the pressure and guilt, which really can make it harder to recover or take action towards helping yourself. And then again, acknowledging that seeking help is not, so there's nothing wrong with that. It's a strength. It takes courage and it takes self-awareness, and it shows you are responsible. You're taking responsibility for your health, and it's not a failure. When we actually encourage help-seeking behavior, we can foster a culture of resilience, empathy, and a space where collective care is being given and where we collectively take care of each other, of ourselves, and are able to show up as the best versions of ourselves. Okay, is everyone still doing okay? Any questions at this point? Okay. So then kind of looking at how we identify and build our support groups. Because academic life, postgraduate life can be so isolating. And just keeping in mind that we don't have to do it alone. There are resources out there. So kind of identifying supportive peers or groups, peer support group reduces academic stress and fosters a sense of belonging. And not just academic stress, but peer support also gives you that emotional support. Reaching out to mentors, having or being enrolled in a mentorship program really could make you more resilient in an academic sense and a personal sense, especially for students that might not have as much support like on campus. And then practicing collective care. So, like we said in the previous section, sharing that responsibility for each other's well-being, which can build trust and counters burnout in high stress environments. And then setting up accountability or check-in buddies. So, like we had in a comment earlier, like when do we draw the line at I'm not able to do more than one page a day? When do we start taking accountability? So having a person who you keep accountable, but a person who keeps you accountable, having those weekly check-ins. Research has shown over and over again that it improves goal setting. You're able to regulate your emotions better, and it improves your motivation. And then I also just want to add that at the Student Counseling Center, there are also group psychotherapy sessions that really do cater to a lot of different individuals. We do bring out new types of groups every term, so keep a lookout for that. And it's really a great way for students to manage stress, mental health, and academic pressure in like a collaborative environment. Okay, so we are nearing the end. So I thought we could kind of end off with some self-care strategies. So, how are we currently taking care of ourselves? What are we currently doing to, to take care of ourselves? Okay, I see there's a question. I will pop my email address down in the chat, and then any of those questions, you're welcome to just send me an email and we can see. But we definitely can set up a Zoom session. Yes. Okay, Simon, I see. Simon, are you off campus? So not staying in Makanda? Okay, you're in Namibia, but you're a Rhodes student. So yes, 100%. The online sessions would then be obviously very useful to you. I'm going to put my email address down now. So please feel free to send an email. I will also put down the counseling center's email address so that you can send an email there as well. Okay, so let's kind of get into the last part of the session today and go into what are some self-care strategies that could work for us. So, self-care isn't always candles and baths. True self-care will look different to all of us, but it's going to be about what is sustainable, what will restore your energy. So, to kind of take a reflective moment and think what makes you feel grounded, recharged, or present, and what are the small things or big things that bring you joy during a busy week. So, some ideas I put down here, because we are busy, because there's no time, trying micro moments of self-care. So a 2-minute box breathing exercise, holding in your breath for 4 seconds, or taking a breath in for 4 seconds, holding it, breathing out for 4 seconds, and holding it again. So keeping that imaginary box in your head, just to kind of regulate those emotions, bring yourself back to a state of calm. Okay, so here we have, yes, staying in a clean environment, 100%. That's like having a clean environment, like having a clean kind of mental state. If I understand you correctly there. So that's what makes you feel grounded and makes you feel present in the moment. Thanks for sharing. So maybe taking short walks or music breaks. Journaling, also a very useful strategy. Even like just 5 minutes. Journaling, it doesn't have to take an hour. And then just again, finding what restores you. I also thought it could be useful to kind of go into some types of meditation. So just like just gonna go through 3 types. So breath focused meditation. So we are anchoring our awareness in our breathing. to calm the mind and reduce anxiety. So what that entails would be like noticing how you inhale and exhale without trying to change it. And that's kind of where the mindfulness of it comes in. So mindfulness is about not changing anything, but just being in the moment, being present, feeling your breath without judgment. And then guided visualization, this uses mental imagery, and it's used usually, like, there are so many good ones on YouTube. Usually you can use like a peaceful scene, create a mental image of a peaceful scene or a positive outcome to relax and refocus. So often involves a narrator guiding you through a calming story or a scenario. And then mindful walking, walking to the library, walking to your class, to your office. So walk slowly and deliberately, paying attention to each step and the sensations in your body. So this is a very, very useful grounding practice for those who struggle with actually being still, like struggling to take that break. Okay. So a guided meditation session, and this is something you can do on your own, is to kind of choose a quiet place so it's calm, it's distraction free, it's safe, it's relaxing for you. And then bringing your attention to the present moment. So bringing your attention to the here and now, letting go about thoughts about the past, about the future, deadlines, about everything going on except for the here and now. And then tapping into that body awareness. So noticing the sensations in your body, where you feel tension, where are you warm, where are you cold, how does your body feel? Are your feet on the ground? How do you feel sitting in your chair or laying on your bed? And then focus on your breathing. So observing your breathing, its rhythm, the depth, and the feeling of the air entering and leaving. And to really be mindful and to engage all the senses. So tune into what you can hear, what you can smell, what you are feeling, or even what you are tasting. And again, being mindful and without any judgment. And then ending the meditation by slowly bringing back awareness into your surroundings by stretching gently and then opening your eyes when you are ready. Um, there are also many useful apps and videos and resources that do guided meditations, and I'll be more than happy to share them with you. But just for time's sake, I just thought it would be good to have like a available mental health resource page. Um, so the Rhodes University Counseling Center, we have individual and group therapy, and then the Center for Postgraduate Studies that have these workshops and invaluable resources, and then help lines that you can access. So Higher Health has a 24-hour crisis line, and then SADAG, so the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, also has a helpline that you can contact. And then yeah, I don't know, this quote really, when I was preparing for today's workshop, it really stood out to me that like almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. And usually that sense of unplugging often has such guilt and failure attached to it, but you are just restoring yourself, you're giving yourself back that power. It was just a powerful quote to me. And then these are kind of just the resources that I used. Try to keep it relatively updated. So if anyone would be interested. And then here are our contact details. Again, the student counseling center, the email is there. Please follow us on Instagram. We post a lot of workshops on there as well. And then, yes, our contact number should you need to call. How long must the guided meditation doesn't have to take long. It can be short, it can be 5 minutes. There's not really a set amount, of time for that. So I think that's kind of what makes it useful, is that it can kind of fit into the amount of time that you have. Okay. Are there any other questions? Any other concerns? Okay, I really hope that this was a useful workshop for you guys, and that you gained something. Thank you for joining today, and I wish you all the best with the rest of the year. And please reach out if there is any support that we can give you, any support that you might need. Thank you, guys.